Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jose from Florida Hood Blogs. Today we're going to talk about 10 things you need to know before you move. Some people get up and move across the country without a second thought, but for some of us, the thought of moving can be very scary. It seems like the biggest concern that most of us have when we consider moving is the area that I am moving to safe? Is it a good place for my family to live? So we're going to particularly focus on how to identify whether a neighborhood is safe. On this video, we're going to teach you how to scope out a neighborhood so that you can find out if it's a good place or if it's a place you want to avoid. Sometimes if you have a job opportunity, you're not really able to scope out the place, but if you're making a purposeful move, you need to take the time to visit the place and spend about a week or two there on the ground to really see and get a feel for the place before you make the move. Some places, one day is enough to figure out this isn't the right place for me. Weeks and months of looking at realtor and Googling things have no comparison to on-the-ground footwork. And if you're not able to visit the place because you can't afford it, should you really be moving if you don't have an emergency fund? So if you don't have an emergency fund to be able to visit the place before you move there, then maybe you're not really in the right position to move yet. Number one is YouTube. Go on YouTube and write rappers in the place you want to move to. Now, it's not wrong for a place to have local artists. However, when it comes to this particular type of music and their music videos, they are very insightful regarding how and exactly what on earth is going on in some of these neighborhoods. Seems like it's the best way to get an in-depth view of what's really happening in the ground in a neighborhood. So even if you don't like rap music, this is a very good way of getting insight on a neighborhood. We were looking at Macon, Georgia. The houses there were so affordable. For $100,000, you can get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2007-2008 house, brand spanking new. Like, not like brand new, but wow, what a deal. So when I started to YouTube rappers in Macon, Georgia, here are some of the things we ran across. If out-of-towners moved into town, we get excited because we can run their house down. What that means is people in Macon apparently are excited when somebody from Florida or New York moves to Georgia. They look at your license plate on your car and they say, wow, this guy's just moved into town. He's not really aware of how it goes down around here. So it's the perfect opportunity to do a home invasion robbery. This is the type of stuff a rapper is going to tell you about a neighborhood, but maybe your real estate agent might just want to slide that underneath the rug. If one person is doing a crip walk in a YouTube video in the town you're moving to, that may not be too concerning. In the case of Macon, Georgia, the entire neighborhood, including elderly people, are crip walking in a neighborhood. That's probably not the place you want to move to, unless you're a crip and like crip walking and want everybody in your community, including the elderly, to participate in this community affair. Many times, rap music is focused around crime and the lifestyle of crime, and these music videos give you an in-depth view of what type of criminal activity is most prevalent in an area. Also on YouTube, you can look up high school fights. Look at all the schools, middle school, high school, and look for fights. And if a middle school or high school seems to have several YouTube videos about fights in that school, then probably gives you an indication that the schools are not great. If you Google a high school or YouTube a high school, let's say, and they have a lot of videos about playing instruments or stuff like that, it might be a better school. Number two, another great way to kind of identify what's going on in a neighborhood is to see what's going down at the local gas stations. And in particular, bathrooms are a great place to start your search. If the gas stations in the neighborhood require you a key, and the bigger the key is and the thing attached to the key, the more dangerous the neighborhood is. There's no real reason why a neighborhood should need to have a key to use the bathroom in a gas station unless an employee has to individually identify the person and whether they want to allow them to use the bathroom. It seems that in a lot of neighborhoods where there's a lot of homelessness, you'll end up with many people using public bathrooms to the point where public bathrooms will end up getting a key to keep people from using the bathrooms for reasons other than the intended purpose, which is the regular customers at the business. You can also park your vehicle for about 30 minutes outside the gas station and see what type of environment is going on. If somebody approaches your vehicle and asks for money, that's usually a bad sign. If you see hand-to-hand drug transactions, that's probably a bad sign. If there are people just hanging out at the gas station for no apparent reason, that's usually a bad sign unless it's a very rural community and there's nowhere else to actually hang out or nothing else to do. Another thing that most of us are not aware of is that heroin addicts go into bathrooms and they'll puncture a hole in the walls, and then they will proceed to stick toilet paper inside that hole to clean off the syringes they're using to inject their drugs with. If a gas station bathroom has many patched up holes on the wall, that is an indication that there's been a lot of consistent drug use in the area, and that is why many inner cities today, the tile will go up to 7 foot high or 8 foot high in the bathroom to prevent this from happening. Okay, number 3, scoping out parking lots and behind businesses. This is going to take a little bit of footwork. If you see an abandoned building, so now you're on the ground, you're looking for abandoned buildings, you're looking behind marketplaces. If there's a huge business center, go around the back. If you notice a lot of shopping carts in places where they're not supposed to be, especially if they have personal items on them. If you notice that there's heroin needles and beer cans and all types of little odds and ends that will give you a really good indication to what happens in a neighborhood. If you go to a neighborhood, you find an abandoned building, you start to find syringes, you start to find Ziploc bags, you start to find a lot of beer cans, alcohol cans, and other types of lifestyle related things in abandoned buildings, in parking lots behind major business centers. This will give you an indication that there's a lot more going on in a neighborhood behind closed doors. So find the local corner store and kind of walk around the back of these corner stores and abandoned business districts and see what type of things you can find on the ground in the garbage cans, and that will give you a huge indication to what's actually going on in that neighborhood. Pay close attention to soda cans that have a hole punctured in them or that have been tampered with, as sometimes these are drug paraphernalia items. For some reason that I still don't understand, another thing you can look for in parking lots that are usually an indicator of a bad neighborhood is if there's a lot of oil stains on the cement. That usually means that people are driving around leaking oil all over the place, which is a very distasteful thing in my personal opinion. Number 4 is graffiti. The actual writing on the wall can tell you quite a bit about a neighborhood. You can actually look up the graffiti. Sometimes it means absolutely nothing, and it's just somebody's graffiti name, and they'll write it all over the place, all over town, just to be criminals. Other times the graffiti is very specific. If there's a specific letter style that you notice that looks gang related, that is very important. Block letters and arrows pointing downward are very indicative of graffiti that is related to gangs. Also, if there's letters and numbers within the same tag, usually means it's gang related. Something like a 3 and a 2 or a 3800 or 1400, 1800, any type of number that is related to a neighborhood street number nearby usually means that there's a local gang. You will usually find gang graffiti in abandoned buildings behind business plazas that are neglected, or in neighborhoods. If there's an abandoned house in a neighborhood, you will usually find gang graffiti on that. Sometimes it's not going to be facing the main road. Sometimes it's going to be in a wall behind an alleyway. So it takes a little bit of creativity and imagination to kind of find out the type of places where you'll find that gang graffiti, because sometimes it's not going to be facing a main road. It's going to be on an alleyway or behind an abandoned business or in some other area that is very easy for the gangsters to, I don't know, you just got to use your imagination and kind of think in a neighborhood, in a town, what type of place would be the type of place where you'd find it, and look for it, purposely look for it. It'll give you a great insight. Number 5 is going for a drive at night. Yes, the night brings out the best in us and sometimes the worst in us. Find out where the nightlife is and see it with your own two eyes. See what type of neighborhoods are probably most likely to have action at night, and go into those neighborhoods. And really at night you'll be able to see things you normally won't see in the daytime. Sometimes an area is all working class and it's very quiet and peaceful in the daytime, and then at night when people get out of work, it turns into a different environment. The same thing can be said about school kids. Sometimes school kids are going to be in school all day, and later on in the evening is when they have time off. All of that is going to give you some great insight into a neighborhood. Pay close attention to exactly what day of the week you go on your night drive. On a weeknight, there shouldn't really be much going on a weeknight. There definitely shouldn't be anything going on Sunday. And Friday and Saturday are going to be the wildest, especially around midnight. Anything after midnight on a Friday or Saturday will give you a pretty good idea of how wild a neighborhood can get. Places that are vacation-like could have a lot of action on a Sunday, and places that are winter right after the snow thaws, they could have action at any time during the night because people have been boxed in for a while and they're ready to get some action on. They're trying to enjoy the weather before it gets cold again. So just keep all that in mind. It's going to vary from some place to place. Sometimes just because there's a lot of action going on at night doesn't mean it's a bad area, but make sure you don't skip out on scoping out a neighborhood at night. It's when a lot of the bad stuff happens. Sometimes night can bring out the beauty in a place, or better highlight particular situations that may be going on in a neighborhood. So if you're moving and you're scoping out a neighborhood, make sure you're very diverse with your schedule and not just focus on what happens in the afternoons in a place. Focus on the morning, focus at night, pay attention to what day of the week it is, and all that is going to give you some really good insight into a neighborhood. Are there young children unattended running wild through a city at night? Are they in groups of 4 to 5? Those are the types of details that can really affect your livelihood once you're actually in that neighborhood. Some neighborhoods are very quiet at night because it's generally a quiet, calm place. Other places are very quiet at night because people are afraid to go out at night. So make sure you kind of try to understand exactly not what you're seeing, but why you're seeing what you're seeing. Is the neighborhood empty because people are afraid to be out at night? Or is the neighborhood empty because people are all having to go to work the next day in the morning? So really tune in not only to what you're seeing, but the entire schedule. What time people wake up in the neighborhood, what time they leave, what time they hang out. You could go into a town on a Tuesday and it could be absolutely dead. There's nothing going on. However, if you're there on a Friday or Saturday or on a holiday when everybody's around, the atmosphere of that neighborhood could be completely different. You can go into a neighborhood on one day of the week and it can be a complete ghost town, and you can be there on another day of the week and there's a lot of lively things going on, activities, events. So make sure you really tune into those fine details. Number 6, talk to the locals. This is one you definitely do not want to skip out on. You must talk to the locals. Talk to the guy hanging out outside the gas station. Talk to the police officer. Talk to anybody you run into at a park, anywhere. Talk to the locals. And do not be afraid to directly ask them, hey, I want to move to this community. What do you think I should look for? Is there anything that's good about the community? Is there something you don't like about the community? Many times the locals will point you in the right direction and they'll tell you, hey, this community has this problem. Go over there and check this out, and you'll get some really amazing insight from the locals. Who would know the place better than the ones that live there? Personally, when I'm scoping out a place, at the hotel, I try to catch the person who's at the counter. They already know you're out of town. They already know your name usually. And you can catch them on a smoke break and say, hey, you know, I'm looking at the area to move here. And they'll tell you stuff like, oh, this neighborhood is really nice, but hey, I live in this neighborhood and we have that problem. Many times the information you're going to find on the internet about a neighborhood being dangerous. Give you guys an example. In Citrus County, everybody says that Beverly Hills is an absolutely horrible, scary neighborhood. When you go in person and you talk to the locals that live there, they're actually pretty content with their neighborhoods, and it just seems that the locals have kind of exaggerated the situation on the internet. Who knows why? Also, find out from the locals where the worst parts of town are. You're going to need to find out what is the absolute worst place in the county you're going to move to, in the city you're going to move to, where's the hood, where's the most dangerous, what area has the worst reputation, and you need to spend some time there. Of course, everywhere you go is going to have a good part and a bad part and a worse part. You need to find out where the worst part is, and you need to spend time there. Why would you do that? Because frankly, it's not going to get worse than that particular place. So if you spend some time there, it'll give you an indication to how bad a community can get or what types of problems exist in that community. They're really going to be outlined clearly outlined, clearly defined. This is as bad as it gets in this area. And a lot of times people skip out on that. They look and they focus only on the best areas when they're moving somewhere, and they forget to check out the worst areas. What could happen is that you check out an area that's supposedly supposed to be horrible, and you spend some time there and it's not that bad. So the areas that have a better reputation are obviously better. And if an area that is the worst part of town has some serious poverty, some serious problems, some serious drug dealing going on, it gives you an indication that maybe the areas that appear to be nicer could have some deeper problems because of the proximity to this neighborhood, or that overall there's a problem in that community that makes some people in the community live in horrible conditions. So if the hood is too hood, there's usually an outlined problem within the community in general. Are the housing conditions in the worst part of town acceptable, or are they completely deplorable? Are they absolutely horrible? A community has to take care of all of its residents, not just some. So if you go to the worst part of town and there's some extreme poverty, there's some extreme situations going on, then there's something wrong with the community as a whole. Because even today, more than ever, even the poor neighborhoods should have adequate housing. If there's certain things, a park. We have neighborhoods in Southwest Florida that are bad, but at least there's a park, at least the roads are paved. If you go into a neighborhood and in the worst part of town, the roads are not paved and there's some serious infrastructure problems, it seems like that part of the community has been abandoned for a reason, then that's going to outline a larger problem within your community. You can also look up arrest records. Every county will usually publish their arrest records, and they're available to the public the next day. So you can look up the previous day's arrest records. You can look at the people's faces. Do they look like they're on meth? If they have meth face or meth teeth, you can see that visually. And it'll give you an idea for exactly who's being arrested in a neighborhood. That's a great tool to scope out a neighborhood. Also pay attention to what the demographics of an area are, and do the arrest records match the demographics. If a particular demographic is 5% of the population but 80% of the arrests in a community, then you definitely have some deeply engraved problems in that community. So pay attention to that detail. Number 8 is have a little fun. Forget about the hoods, forget about the crime and the drugs and all the bad stuff. Please make sure you're able to have fun, and not just have fun one time. Like a lot of places will have theme parks and attractions and so much of that type of thing. But when you move to an area, what do you really enjoy? Do you enjoy having a lot of different restaurants? Do you enjoy a lot of different parks? How important is being near the water for you? Do you like fishing? Is there a lot of fishing spots if you're into fishing? Do you like country roads? Do you like big city stuff? Do a lot of fun stuff, and make sure that the stuff that you do while you're there are stuff that you're actually going to do there while you're in person. If an area has a tourist trap that you might love the first time you go there, after going there 3 or 4 times, you may be bored of that attraction, and now you're in an area where there's absolutely nothing else that you like. Please make sure that the things that you like to do are in that community. One of the biggest complaints that I get on this channel from people about particular places where they live is how boring and how little there is to do in an area, and how they think their kids are going to end up doing drugs because there's just absolutely nothing else to entertain their kids with in some of these areas. So make sure that the area you're moving to fits what you like. If you're a country person, maybe a country road is right for you. If you're a very active city person and you like to have restaurants and dining and shopping, maybe a country road in the middle of nowhere isn't the place you want to be. Number 9 is watch the market. Sometimes rush decisions are not really good decisions. Watch the market. Start doing your homework early. If you're going to move a year from now, start looking at that market already and take time to absorb what's going on in that market. I think to really understand a market, you need to study it very closely for about 4 months. Yes, find 20 houses you like and save them on your realtor website, and let's see how long it takes for those 20 houses to sell. If 4 months later only one of those houses has sold, then that neighborhood, the area you're looking at, is a very sluggish market, and you might want to rent before you buy when you move into that place, just to play it safe, because then you could be stuck there longer than you'd want to after you actually move there and find stuff you don't like. Own the house, but don't let the house own you. I was looking at houses in Southeast Alabama, Anniston, Alex City, areas like that, and out of 40 houses that I saved, about 38 are still available 6 months into this. That lets me know that it's a very sluggish market. And if you're going to move there, now you know that those houses are sitting for a long time. Doesn't mean you can't move to a sluggish market, but that lets you know that you have more power of acquisition. You're able to tell your buyer, hey, there's 80 houses for sale in this neighborhood and only 2 of them have sold. You're going to have to be much more flexible on your price. Even if your price range is in the $200,000 or $300,000 range or above, a great place to study a market is under $120,000, because this is the starting point, the point where things can start to change, where affordable options can disappear, and that lets you know that a market is moving in the right direction. If it costs $160,000 to build a brand new house in a neighborhood, then everything under that price is where you really need to be studying to understand in which direction the market is moving. The market starts to move from the bottom. The market doesn't start to move from the top. So just because an area like here in Naples where I live, there's hundreds and thousands of really expensive properties, the crunch is always at the bottom. The crunch for affordability always at the bottom. So start with a low number, start from the bottom, and try to get a feel in which direction the market is going. Is there a lot more inventory entering the market, or stuff sitting on the market for a very long time? All that is going to give you a great indication to whether you actually want to invest money into this area. Number 10, the last but a very important aspect of your search is going to be joining Facebook groups. There's groups for the town, what's happening in this town, fishing in this town, what's happening, blah, whatever, whatever hobby you're into. There's going to be local groups, there's going to be online flea market groups. You need to really, really dive into all these groups. If you're moving to Birmingham, Alabama, you need to be in at least 10 to 15 groups for that town. Maybe it's a smaller town, there's only 5 or 6 or 2 or 3 groups. You need to be in those groups, and you need to really study every single post and really have an idea for what's going on in those communities. And these Facebook groups are absolutely amazing. You may not want to disclose that you're moving there, because then the opinions that they're going to give you are going to be altered. Many places don't want people to move there from other areas. That's really the case in a lot of small towns and a lot of places like Florida where too many people are moving. So you may not want to disclose your intentions, but you can ask something like, what is the best neighborhood in this community? And people will give you honest answers. If they are able to discern your intentions, then they may start to alter their opinions. I don't know why people do this, but so many people are actually going to lie to you on these groups on purpose, or they'll make YouTube videos to deceive you, to keep a neighborhood from people moving in, which is horrible, because you should never lie to people when they need help. And you're not going to change thousands of people moving to a state with your opinion on Facebook. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's a really stupid effort. Also, people's opinions, maybe somebody thinks a place is horrible and it's really not. So somebody could write an article saying how this neighborhood is horrible, and it's just they don't know how to appreciate the beauty of an area. they're going to have opinions that aren't exactly going to be yours, to be honest. So it's just because one particular person or many people think that a neighborhood is crime ridden and it's horrible, that doesn't exactly mean that it's really that way. That's just the way they look at things or the way they want to portray things because they have a particular opinionated view. That doesn't exactly have to be right. Just to illustrate that point, look at these two comments that I got on a video right next to each other. One person thinks it's alright, the other person thinks it's horrible. People's opinions are really going to be different from person to person. So you cannot exactly grab one person's opinion about a place and consider it to be the norm for everything else. Think hard, listen to a lot of people's opinions, but don't exactly believe one person's opinion over the next. Moving is going to change your life. I've been thinking about moving. We put our house on the market and it didn't sell, and it gave us a lot of time to reflect. We got the time to look at one area. Initially, if the house had sold, we would have moved to Lehigh. Then we thought about LaBelle. Then we started to look at Arcadia. Then we started to look all over the state. So sometimes having time to think, if the house had sold, we would have made our decision based on what we thought at that moment. And having extra time to think about it has really been great because it's given us time to change our opinion about where we're going to move to next. What sometimes may feel frustrating at first can be a huge benefit in the long run. In our case, this YouTube channel has been great. We actually started this YouTube channel right after when we were at about the point of Arcadia. We started to record the places that we were going to because so many people were asking us. As I started looking at moving out of Naples, I started to explore different places. And a lot of people started to ask me, hey, Jose, how was this place that you checked out? Or how was that place you were checking out? And that really, it was easier just to put it on YouTube to show them that. And once I started to put it on YouTube to show my friends, it started to get a lot of viewership. And that led to this channel. So the creation of this channel was brought about by the idea of moving out of Naples. So it's been great that I've taken it slower than what I initially was hoping for because it's given me the opportunity to create this YouTube channel. And this YouTube channel is growing really fast. And there is income in the future from it if it keeps growing like this. So it's a good thing that things kind of worked out slower than what I had expected. So now we're going to fix up the house over the next few months. And we're actually going to rent the house. Or if we get a really good offer, then we'll sell it. The thing about us is, we really got to get into this on another video about how Hispanic people think differently than American people. From a cultural point of view, I'm from Cuba. My wife is from Michigan. I have learned a lot from her American culture and how they handle business. And it has made me a better person financially. In the same way, Hispanic people, we are more of a risk taker, and sometimes that has its benefits as well. So I think very soon I'm going to do a video just talking about the differences. Also, you guys have been commenting on really safe areas in Miami. Why do they have metal bars on the windows and stuff like that? It's really a cultural thing. Like, I have these neighbors across the street. They're from the Dominican Republic. We live in North Naples. There's no crime concerns around here. They have their properties totally fenced in, and then they put these giant lights on all four corners of the property because they're from the Dominican Republic, and they think that if they have lights and fenced-in property, it's going to reduce crime, even though there is no crime to reduce to begin with. It's a cultural thing, and I really want to explain to you guys, since we're, she's American, I'm Cuban, we're married together, just some of the differences of how we think. So a lot of times when you look at these neighborhoods in Miami, you say, oh, all the houses have metal railings on the windows. It must be a dangerous place. Not really. It's just the mindset that people have is different. And again, when you're moving somewhere, do not judge by the way you think. I think as humans, the biggest mistake we make is to assume that everybody else sees things and thinks the same way that we do. And this will affect your judgment when you go to move to a place because you're looking at things from your perspective. Everybody is different and we all think differently. If you assume that everybody else's train of thought is exactly like yours, then you're not going to comprehend what you're looking at. Part of what I want to do on this channel is expand your ability to understand that not everybody sees things the way you do, and not everybody thinks the same way you do. If you're moving, you cannot be prejudiced. If you're looking at a new area, and it's not that I'm accusing you of something. I'm just saying expand your thinking and try to understand how other people see things, because you're not aware that you have a prejudice. I had this problem, and I try every day to try to understand how other people think, because we don't all see things the same way. And if you're going to move, it's going to affect your judgment, and you're going to make some bad decisions. So it's for your best interest that you learn how other people think, because sometimes we just assume that everybody else thinks the same way we do, and that's not the case. We all think differently, we all see things differently, and it's a great little thing to think about, that not all of us think the same way. What you may consider bad about a neighborhood, somebody else may actually think it's great. So with that in mind, just want to give you guys some ideas of what we got coming in the future for this channel. And if you're not subscribed and you watched my entire rant, subscribe. I have more coming soon. Thank you so much.